The waiting area at Transit Station Omega 7 was crowded with travelers from across the galaxy. Hundreds of aliens sat in organized rows, waiting for their connecting flights to distant worlds. The air hummed with different languages, and the smell of exotic foods mixed together from the nearby vendors. Screens on every wall showed departure times and station news in dozens of scripts. In the middle of all this chaos sat Alone. She was reading something on her, occasionally turning the page with a swipe of her finger. To anyone watching, she looked completely ordinary. She wore simple gray travel clothes and kept her small bag tucked under her seat. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical style. Nothing about her screamed for attention. But the aliens around her noticed anyway. They always did. A group of tall, blue-skinned beings whispered to each other while stealing glances in her direction. Two small, furry creatures with big eyes quickly moved to seats farther away. Even the station workers, floating jellyfish-like aliens in mechanical suits, seemed nervous when they passed her section. Was human, that made her different, that made her dangerous. The screens occasionally flashed news stories about Earth. Most aliens only knew what the broadcasts told them. Earth was a Class 12, one of the worst planets in known space. The gravity there could crush visitors from gentler worlds. The weather killed with floods, hurricanes, and frozen winters. The native animals were nightmares, massive predators with claws and teeth, tiny creatures filled with deadly venom, and diseases that attacked from the inside. And somehow, humans had evolved there. They had not just survived but thrived on that hell planet. Now they were spreading across the galaxy, and no one quite knew what to make of them. Took a sip from her water bottle. The liquid inside looked clear and clean to her, but to the aliens watching, it was terrifying. Human water contained billions of microscopic organisms. On most worlds, drinking such water would mean certain death. Humans drank it every day without thinking. She turned another page on her, completely unaware of the attention she was getting. Or maybe she was aware and just didn't care. It was hard to tell with humans. The main entrance doors slid open with a hiss. 5 new travelers entered the waiting area. They were a species that looked like walking reptiles. They stood over 7 feet tall with green scales covering their bodies. Long tails swished behind them as they walked. Their hands ended in sharp claws that clicked against the floor. They were considered very strong by galactic standards. Most species feared them. They came from a world with light gravity and warm temperatures. Everything had been easy for them. No major predators, no harsh seasons. They had become the dominant species on their planet without much struggle. The leader of the group was named. He had darker scales than the others and a scar across his snout. He wore expensive clothing decorated with medals that showed his high status. His crew followed behind him like shadows, laughing at his jokes and agreeing with everything he said. His eyes scanned the waiting area. He was looking for entertainment. Long flights bored him, and he had 3 hours before his next departure. Then he saw her, the human, sitting alone, reading peacefully. A slow smile spread across his face, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Look at that," said to his crew, speaking loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. All by herself, how brave." His crew laughed. They moved as a group towards section. Other travelers quickly gathered their belongings and moved away. No one wanted to be near whatever was about to happen. Continued reading. She gave no sign that she heard them. And his crew settled into the seats around her, boxing her in. They were so much bigger than her. Even sitting down, his head was higher than hers. His tail curled around the side of her chair. "I've heard stories about your kind," said, leaning forward. "They say you come from a planet of monsters. They say humans are dangerous." He paused for effect. "You don't look dangerous to me." His crew found this hilarious. They slapped their tails against the floor and made hissing sounds that passed for laughter among their kind. Turned a page. Her expression never changed. The smile faded a little. He was used to getting reactions: fear, anger, or respect. This human gave him nothing. It bothered him more than he wanted to admit. "Hey," he said louder, "I'm talking to you. On my world, we teach our young to respect their superiors. Did your savage planet teach you any manners?" One of his crew members added, "Maybe they were too busy running from monsters to learn proper behavior." More laughter. Several other aliens in the waiting area watched nervously. Station security, two officers in their floating suits, hovered near the walls but didn't approach. They knew had connections, rich families, political power. It was easier to let him have his fun than deal with the complaints later. Reached for her water bottle. She took another slow sip. Then she set it down carefully and went back to reading. His tail twitched with irritation. This was not how things were supposed to go. Lesser beings showed fear. They begged or ran or fought back so he could prove his strength. This human just sat there like he didn't exist. "You know what I think," said, standing up. He towered over now, his shadow covering her completely. "I think all those stories are lies. I think humans are weak little things that got lucky. Your planet is harsh, yes, but you're soft. Look at you. Small, quiet, pathetic." He reached down and poked her shoulder with one claw, hard enough to hurt, not hard enough to draw blood, not yet. Slowly looked up from her. Her eyes met his. They were dark brown and completely calm. She studied him for a moment, like a teacher looking at a student who wasn't listening in class. "Please leave me alone," she said. Her voice was steady and polite. She spoke Galactic Common perfectly without any accent. "I don't want any trouble. I'm just waiting for my flight." Heard the politeness and mistook it for weakness. He smiled wider. "Or what?" he asked. "What will the little human do?" Looked back at her. "Nothing," she said quietly. "I won't do anything, but you should still leave." Laughed. His crew laughed. Even some of the other aliens in the area seemed confused. The human had a chance to threaten back, to show some of that famous aggression, and she just said she would do nothing. What kind of predator was that? Didn't understand. He had never needed to understand. His world had taught him that might made right, that strength demanded respect, that the big ate the small. He had never lived on a world where the small things could kill you, where the quiet things were the most dangerous, where patience was a survival skill, because sometimes the best hunters waited for the perfect moment to strike. Went back to reading. She knew three things that didn't. First, that she had already given him a warning. Second, that he wouldn't listen. And third, that she was running out of patience. The clock on the wall counted down the minutes. Had 2 hours and 47 minutes until her flight. She hoped, very much, that would get bored and leave before then. But somewhere deep inside, in the part of her that remembered what Earth had taught her ancestors, she knew he wouldn't. Didn't leave. Instead, he moved closer. He walked around's chair slowly, like a predator circling prey. His crew watched with excitement. They knew their leader was building up to something. They had seen this before on other stations with other victims. "You know what your problem is," said, his voice dripping with false concern. "You think you're special. You think because you come from a harsh planet that makes you better than us. But look around." He gestured to the busy station. "This is civilization. Your strength means nothing here. Your savage survival skills are worthless. Here, power comes from connections, from status, from knowing your place." Said nothing. She kept reading, though her eyes had stopped moving across the screen. She was listening, waiting. One of his crew members, a shorter with yellow eyes, leaned over the back of his chair. "I heard humans still eat dead animals on their planet, like primitives. Is that true, Little?" Another added, "I heard they kill each other all the time. Wars every few years. What kind of species does that?" Laughed, "A stupid one, a brutal one. They're probably banned from half the stations in this sector." He bent down until his face was close to us. His breath smelled like sulfur. "Tell me, human, how many stations have thrown you out?" Slowly closed her and set it on her lap. She looked up at again. Her expression was still calm, but something in her eyes had changed. A hardness had appeared there, like ice forming on water. "I've been thrown out of 0 stations," she said quietly, "because I follow the rules. I don't cause trouble, and I always give people a chance to walk away." She paused, letting the words sink in. "You should walk away." Smile vanished. He straightened up, his tail lashing behind him. The words felt like an insult. Who was this small, weak human to tell him what to do? He was of house, from a family that owned 3 planets. He had status. He had power. And this nobody from a backwater dared to give him orders. "You think you're tough," said, his voice rising. "You think those warnings scare me. I've crushed bigger threats than you." He reached down and grabbed from her lap. "Let's see what's so interesting that you can't give me proper respect." His hands twitched just a little. The movement was so small that most people missed it, but crew noticed. One of them took a small step back. "That's mine," said. Her voice was still quiet, but the politeness was gone. "Give it back." Looked at It showed a children's book with colorful pictures, stories about friendly animals and sharing and being kind. He laughed with genuine surprise. "Children's stories, the big, scary human reads baby books." He held it up for his crew to see. They all laughed. "This is what we're supposed to be afraid of." He threw on the floor. It hit the hard surface with a crack. The screen shattered into pieces. The waiting area went completely silent. Even the background noise of the station seemed to fade. Every alien within view stopped what they were doing. They all watched. She looked at her broken, then she looked at the floor. Then very slowly she looked up at. "That was a mistake," she said. Spread his arms wide. What are you going to do about it? Hit me. Go ahead, try it. Station security will lock you up for assault. You'll never leave this station. Maybe that's what you want. Maybe you enjoy being in cages. Stood up. The movement was smooth and controlled. She was so much smaller then, her head barely reached his chest. She had to look up to meet his eyes. I don't want to fight you, she said. I want to get on my flight, go to my new home, and start my new job. That's all I want, but you need to stop now. You broke my property. You've insulted me multiple times, and you're still here. Why are you still here? Leaned down, bringing his face close to hers. Because it's fun. Because you can't do anything about it. Because someone needs to teach you that you're not as special as you think. His crew moved in closer, forming a wall around them. Other aliens in the waiting area pretended to look away, but they all kept watching from the corners of their eyes. The two security officers floated closer, but still didn't intervene. Took a deep breath, in and out, slow and controlled. On my planet, she said, we have a saying, never corner something that's survived worse than you. Do you know why we say that? Snorted. Because you're all drama queens who make up scary stories. No, said. Because cornered things fight back. Because when you leave something no choice, it stops playing nice. Because survival instinct is stronger than common sense. She took another breath. You haven't cornered me yet. I can still walk away, but you need to let me, right now. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. It might have been doubt. It might have been the first hint of understanding. But his crew was watching. His pride was on the line, and he had gone too far to back down now. You're not walking anywhere until I say so, said. He reached down and grabbed his water bottle from her seat. He held it up, examining it like it was something disgusting. This is what you drink, this dirty water. You really are savages. He turned the bottle upside down and poured the water over his head. The liquid splashed down her face, soaking her hair and clothes. It ran down her neck and dripped onto the floor. The waiting area gasped. This was no longer harassment. This was assault. This was public humiliation. This demanded a response. Stood perfectly still. Water dripped from her chin. Her clothes clung to her skin. She didn't wipe her face. She didn't move at all. She just stared at with those dark, calm eyes. Then very slowly, she raised one hand and wiped the water from her face. Her movements were careful and precise. She pushed her wet hair back from her forehead. She looked at her soaked clothes, then at the empty bottle in his hand, then back at his face. Last chance, she said. The words were barely above a whisper, but everyone heard them. Walk away right now while you still can. Threw the empty bottle aside. It clattered across the floor. Or what? He said. What will you do, little human? Cry. Run to security. Go ahead. Show everyone how tough really are. His crew laughed, but the laughter sounded nervous now. They had seen his face. They had seen that stillness, that perfect control. Some instinct deep in their brains, older than civilization, older than language, was trying to tell them something. It was screaming at them to stop, to run, to get away from the small, wet human who hadn't moved or fought back or shown any fear, but had never learned to listen to that instinct. His world had never taught him. He had lived his entire life without real danger, without real consequences. He thought power came from size and status. He didn't understand that the most dangerous predators were the ones who knew how to wait. His hands hung loose at her sides. Her breathing was slow and even. Every muscle in her body was relaxed. She was giving one final moment to be smart, one last chance to see the warning signs and make the right choice. The clock on the wall ticked forward, smiled his sharp-toothed smile, and then he made the worst mistake of his life. He put his hand on her shoulder. His clawed hand gripped his shoulder hard. The sharp tips of his claws pressed through her wet shirt and into her skin, not deep enough to seriously injure, but deep enough to hurt, deep enough to draw blood. Small drops of red appeared on her gray shirt, spreading slowly into the wet fabric. "You're not going anywhere," hissed. His face was inches from hers. "Not until you learn respect. Not until you beg. Maybe after you apologize properly, I'll let you clean up this mess." He gestured at the water puddle on the floor with his tail. His crew laughed again, but it was different now. Quieter, more uncertain. They could see the blood on her shoulder. They could see how still she had become. Looked down at his hand. She watched her own blood seep between his scales. Then she looked up at his face. When she spoke, her voice was different. All the politeness was gone. All the patience had burned away. What remained was something cold and final. "You should have walked away." What happened next took exactly 2.3 seconds. Later, when station security reviewed the footage frame by frame, they would count 2.3 seconds from beginning to end. His hand moved up in a blur, not wild, not panicked, but with perfect precision. Her palm struck the inside of his elbow joint. The sound of cracking bone echoed through the waiting area. His arm bent backward in a way arms shouldn't bend. His hand released her shoulder immediately as pain shot through his entire body. He tried to scream but was already moving. She spun behind him faster than his eyes could track, her arm wrapped around his neck, not choking, just holding, controlling. She was so much smaller than him, but suddenly that didn't seem to matter. Suddenly she had all the leverage. Reached back with his good arm, trying to grab her with his claws. His crew started forward, but they were slow, too slow. They had never needed to move fast before. Their world had made them strong but lazy, came from a world where being slow meant being dead. She shifted her grip, felt her arms tighten around his neck and head. He tried to thrash, tried to throw her off using his size. His tail whipped around, trying to hit her. It missed. Everything missed. She moved with him like she knew what he would do before he did it. "Stop," said quietly, directly into his ear. "Stop fighting and I'll let go. You broke my things and hurt me, but you can still live. Just stop." Didn't stop. He couldn't stop. His pride wouldn't let him. His entire life he had won by being bigger and stronger. He couldn't accept that this small human had control. He reached back again, his claws finding her arm and digging in. Blood ran down from the new wounds. Her blood this time. Felt the pain. She felt her skin tear. She gave him one more second, one more chance to stop, to surrender, to live. He didn't take it. She adjusted her hold one final time. Her hands found the right position on his neck and jaw. Then, In one quick motion that her grandfather had taught her when she was 12, she twisted. The snap was loud, louder than the breaking of his arm. It echoed off the walls of the waiting area. His body went rigid for a moment, then completely limp. Heavy, dead weight in her arms. Lowered his body to the floor. She did it gently, carefully, laying him on his back like she was putting a child to bed. Then she stood up and took 3 steps back. Her hands hung at her sides, bloody and shaking slightly from adrenaline. The entire waiting area was frozen. No one moved. No one made a sound. Even the station announcements seemed to have stopped. Looked at 4 crew members. They stared back at her with wide eyes full of shock and fear. These tall, powerful who had laughed and encouraged their leader suddenly looked small, young, scared. "He wouldn't stop," said. Her voice was steady but tired. "You all saw it. I asked him to leave me alone. I warned him. I gave him chances. Even at the end, I told him to stop fighting and I would let go. He wouldn't stop." One of the crew members opened his mouth, maybe to threaten her, maybe to call for help. But then he saw her eyes, really saw them. Whatever he saw there made him close his mouth and take a step backward. The 2 security officers finally approached, their mechanical suits humming. They moved carefully, keeping their distance. One of them spoke into a communication device, calling for backup and medical assistance. The other kept his eyes locked on. "Ma'am," the officer said, his voice shaking inside his suit, "please put your hands where I can see them and don't make any sudden movements." Slowly raised her hands, showing her empty palms. The blood on her arms was clearly visible. Some was hers, some was. "I'm not going to run," she said. "I'm not going to fight. I'll cooperate with everything. But you need to check the security footage, all of it. From the moment they approached me until now, it will show you exactly what happened." More security arrived. A full squad of 6 officers, all armed with shock weapons. They surrounded carefully, treating her like a bomb that might explode. She didn't move. She kept her hands visible and followed every instruction precisely. "Down on your knees," one officer commanded. Knelt down slowly. The puddle of her spilled water was nearby, mixing now with drops of blood. "Hands behind your head." She, the security team, moved in and placed restraints on her wrists. They were designed for beings much larger than humans, so they had to adjust them. Even then, they were loose, but didn't try to slip out of them. She sat quietly and waited. Medical personnel arrived and examined his body. After a few moments, one of them looked up and shook their head. "Dead. Confirmed." His crew stood together in a tight group. They were crying now, making high-pitched keening sounds. One of them pointed at and shouted, "Murderer! Savage! She killed him!" The security officer in charge, a large beetle-like alien, looked at the accusing. "We will investigate fully. Everyone who witnessed the incident will give statements. For now, clear the area." They tried to remove his body, but it was heavy. 3 medical workers struggled to lift him onto a transport platform, watched silently. She felt nothing in that moment. No satisfaction, no guilt, no fear, just emptiness. Just the familiar numbness that came after violence. She had killed before, though never an alien. There had been an incident on Earth when she was 19. A man who wouldn't take no for an answer. A dark alley. She had done what she had to do. The courts had ruled it self-defense. Her grandfather had held her while she cried and told her that sometimes the world forced you to do terrible things. "I'm sorry," she whispered, so quietly that no one heard. She didn't know if she was apologizing to his crew, to herself, or to the person she had been 30 minutes ago. The person who just wanted to read her book and catch her flight in peace. The security team escorted her toward a holding area. As they passed through the waiting area, every alien they encountered moved out of the way. Some pressed themselves against walls. Others turned their backs, as if not seeing her would keep them safe. One small child, a fuzzy creature with big ears, pointed at her and asked its parent, "Is that a real?" The parent covered the child's eyes and pulled it away quickly. Walked with the security team, her restraints clinking softly with each step. Behind her, workers were already cleaning the area, wiping up water and blood, removing broken pieces of her, erasing all evidence that anything had happened. But the memory would remain. Everyone who saw it would tell the story. The story would spread through the station, then to other stations, then across the galaxy. The story of the quiet human who asked to be left alone, who warned and waited and gave chances, and who, when finally pushed too far, showed exactly why you don't corner a. As they entered, the security wing caught her reflection in a polished metal wall. Her hair was still wet and messy. Her shirt was torn and bloody. Her arms had deep scratches, but her face was calm, tired but calm. She looked like a kindergarten teacher who had a bad day at the station. She looked completely ordinary. And that, she thought, was the scariest thing of all. The holding cell was small and clean. A metal bench ran along one wall. A camera in the corner watched everything. Sat on the bench with her hands folded in her lap, waiting. They had removed the restraints and treated her wounds. White bandages now covered the scratches on her arms and shoulder. Someone had given her a clean gray station uniform to replace her torn, bloody clothes. She had been there for 6 hours. They brought her food, but she only ate a little. They brought her water in a sealed container after scanning it 3 times. She drank it slowly, wondering if they understood that the microscopic life in Earth water actually helped humans stay healthy. Through the small window in her cell door, she could see security officers rushing back and forth. She heard raised voices. The word kept coming up. So did diplomatic incident and potential charges. Hour 7 arrived with a visitor. The cell door opened and a human man walked in. He looked to be in his 50s, with gray hair at his temples and tired eyes. He wore formal clothes with an insignia on his chest that marked him as an official representative of Earth. He carried a folder full of documents. "Miss," he said, sitting down on the bench beside her, "I'm from the Earth Embassy. I'm here to help you through this situation." Nodded, "Thank you for coming." Opened his folder and glanced through some papers. "I've already seen the security footage, all of it, from start to finish." He paused. "I'm sorry you had to go through that." "Is he really dead?" asked quietly. "Yes. His neck was broken at the second and third vertebrae. Death was instant. closed the folder. The station administrator wants to charge you with murder. Family is demanding justice. They're calling you a savage and a murderer. They want you executed. Closed her eyes. I gave him so many chances. I know, said. The footage shows everything. Every warning you gave. Every time you tried to de-escalate. The problem is that most species here don't understand restraint the way we do. They see the end result and think you're a killer. They don't see all the moments you chose not to kill him. He pulled out and showed her a document. This is the official report from the medical examiner. Before you broke his neck, you had already disabled him. His arm was completely shattered. He couldn't have fought effectively, but he kept attacking you. He dug his claws into your arm. You gave him a verbal warning even then. Only after he ignored that final warning did you finish it. I didn't want to kill him, said. I just wanted him to leave me alone. I believe you, replied. But convincing the station administrator is going to be harder. He's unnamed, very cautious, very worried about setting precedents. If he rules this as self-defense, he's afraid other humans might use that as an excuse for violence. That's not fair. No, it's not. Leaned back against the wall. Want to know something interesting? This is the 14th incident like this I've handled in the past 2 years. Always the same pattern, human minding their own business. Alien doesn't understand boundaries. Alien pushes too far. Human shows restraint until they can't anymore. Alien gets hurt or killed. Then everyone acts shocked. Why does it keep happening? Sigh deeply. Because the galaxy doesn't really understand us yet. They know Earth is classified as a Class 12. They know the statistics. Gravity 2.3 times galactic average. Temperature swings of 70 degrees. Predators with bite forces that can crush steel. Diseases that kill within hours. They know all that. He stood up and paced the small cell. What they don't understand is what that made us. They think we're dangerous because we're strong. They don't realize we're dangerous because we learned control. On Earth, if early humans had attacked everything that annoyed them, they would have wiped themselves out. We're tribal creatures. We live in groups. We had to learn patience. We had to learn when to fight and when to walk away. Listened carefully. Her grandfather had told her similar things, but hearing it from a diplomat made it feel more real. The station administrator ordered a full medical scan of you, continued. The results terrified him. Would you like to hear them? Yes. Pulled up another document on his. Your bone density is 3 times higher than the average galactic citizen. Your muscles contain fast-twitch fibers that let you move at speeds most species can only achieve in full sprint. Your cardiovascular system processes oxygen so efficiently that you could run for hours in atmosphere that would suffocate others. Your immune system is currently fighting off 6 different station pathogens and winning easily. He scrolled down. The station gravity is 0.7 of Earth normal. Do you know what that means? You've been operating at less than 75% of your normal weight since you arrived. Every movement you've made has been in what is essentially light gravity for you. You've been holding back just by existing here. I always hold back, said softly. We all do. That's the first thing they teach human children who leave Earth. Be gentle, be careful. Others are fragile. Exactly, said, but didn't know that. He saw your restraint and thought it was weakness. It's a common mistake. The galaxy is used to strength being obvious, loud, aggressive. They don't recognize quiet strength, patient strength, the kind of strength that chooses not to act. There was a knock on the cell door. A security officer poked his head in. Mr. Administrator wants to meet with you both. We'll be right there, said. He looked at Ready. She stood up. What do I need to do? Just tell the truth, calmly. Show him the same control you showed throughout the incident. Let me do most of the talking, but answer his questions honestly. Paused at the door. One more thing. Crew gave their statements. All four of them confirmed that you warned him multiple times. Two of them said they tried to get him to stop. One of them is filing a complaint against family for forcing them to participate. Really? Really? Not everyone out here is like. Some of them understand. They're the ones we need to convince. They walked through the security wing to a conference room. Administrator was waiting there, a tall being that looked like a cross between a mantis and a tree. His skin had a bark-like texture, and his eyes were large and multifaceted. Several other officials sat around the table, including the lead security officer and the medical examiner. Gestured for them to sit. Mister, thank you for coming. I've spent the last several hours reviewing all the evidence in this case. I've watched the security footage 17 times. I've read all the witness statements. I've consulted with legal experts from 3 different systems. He folded his long, branch-like fingers together. This is the most difficult decision I've had to make in my 20 years as administrator. On one hand, a being is dead. That cannot be ignored. On the other hand, the circumstances leading to that death are complex. Sat perfectly still. Placed a hand on the table, ready to speak if needed. Miss said, looking directly at her, I need to hear it from you, in your own words. Why did you kill? Took a breath. When she spoke, her voice was clear and steady. Because he wouldn't stop. I didn't want to hurt him. I asked him to leave me alone. He refused. I warned him. He ignored me. He destroyed my property. I stayed calm. He assaulted me with water. I stayed calm. He grabbed me hard enough to make me bleed. I stayed calm. I disabled his arm and told him to stop fighting. He refused and attacked me again. Only then, when he gave me no other choice, did I do what I had to do to protect myself. She looked in his strange eyes. On Earth, I would have been justified in defending myself much earlier. From the moment he touched me without permission. From the moment he trapped me. But I waited. I gave him chances. I tried everything else first. Was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to, Is this typical of human behavior? Yes, said. Humans are taught from childhood to use minimal necessary force. We're taught to de-escalate. We're taught that our strength is a responsibility, not a weapon. What you see as excessive violence, we see as remarkable restraint. The medical examiner, a small blue being, spoke up. Administrator, I've studied the footage carefully. At no point until the final moment did Miss use her full capabilities. When she struck his arm, she could have hit his neck. When she got behind him, she could have crushed his spine. When he continued to attack, she could have torn him apart with her bare hands. She chose the quickest, most humane end. Given her capabilities, that shows incredible control. Looked at each official in turn. They nodded or made gestures of agreement. Finally, he looked back at. After careful consideration of all evidence, I am ruling this as justifiable self-defense. The conference room was silent after administrator spoke those words. Justifiable self-defense. Felt something release in her chest, a tension she didn't know she was carrying. However, continued, and the tension came back, there will be conditions. Family is politically powerful. They will not accept this decision easily. To prevent further conflict, I am banning 4 crew members from this station permanently. They instigated the confrontation and failed to stop their leader when they should have. Additionally, I am issuing a formal apology to you, Miss, on behalf of this station. What happened to you should never happen to any traveler under our protection. He stood up, his tall frame unfolding like a tree growing. You are free to go. Your belongings will be returned to you. We will provide you with a new to replace the one that was destroyed, and we will cover all your medical expenses. Thank you, said quietly. Looked at her for a long moment. I have a daughter, he said unexpectedly. She is studying xenobiology at the Central University. Last year she asked me if she could include Earth in her research. I said no. I told her it was too dangerous, that humans were unpredictable and violent. He made a gesture that might have been his species' version of a sad smile. I was wrong, not about the danger but about the violence. You are the most patient, controlled being I have encountered. I will be telling my daughter about you. With your permission, I would like her to interview you someday for her research. I'd like that, Sid. Stood and shook's hand, or rather, his branch-like appendage. Thank you, Administrator. This sets an important precedent. Yes, it does, agreed. Perhaps it will make others think twice before harassing. 2 days later, stood in the same waiting area where everything had happened. Workers had cleaned everything perfectly. There was no trace of blood, no broken, no evidence that someone had died there. The only difference was how the other travelers treated her. They kept their distance. A wide circle of empty seats surrounded her. When she moved to the food vendors to buy something to eat, the crowd parted like water. Conversations stopped when she approached. Parents pulled their children close. Bought a simple meal and sat down to eat. The loneliness felt heavy. She understood why they were afraid, but it still hurt. She had never wanted to be seen as dangerous. She just wanted to be left alone. A small voice interrupted her thoughts. Excuse me, miss. Looked up. A young stood nearby, its jellyfish-like body floating in a child-sized mobility suit. It clutched nervously. Yes, said gently. I saw what happened with the bad man. He was mean to you. The child's voice was high and sweet. My mom said you were scary, but I don't think you are. I think you were just protecting yourself. Like when the bullies at school won't leave me alone. Felt her eyes water. She blinked the tears back. Thank you for saying that. What's your name? I'm Kip. I'm 7 cycles old. Are you really from Earth? I am. Is it true you have animals there that could eat me in one bite? Smiled. Yes, we call them whales, but they don't eat. They eat tiny things called krill. The biggest animals on Earth are actually very gentle. Kip's eyes widened inside the suit. Really? Can you tell me more? For the next hour, talked with Kip about Earth. She told stories about elephants and dolphins and giant pandas. She explained how humans had learned to live alongside dangerous animals, how they had created protected areas where animals could live safely, how the scariest-looking creatures were often the kindest. Other children started gathering around, drawn by Kip's excitement. Their parents watched nervously from a distance, but they didn't interfere. Soon was surrounded by a dozen young aliens, all asking questions about the legendary. "Is it true you can eat things that would poison us?" asked a small furry creature. "Some things, yes, but we can't eat everything. There are plants on Earth that would kill humans too. We just learned which ones were safe." "My teacher said humans used to fight with swords and arrows," said another child. "Is that true?" "Yes, a long time ago. But now we try to solve problems with words instead of weapons. Fighting should always be the last choice, not the first." The children listened with wide eyes. They asked about mountains and oceans, about cities and forests, about human families and how they lived. Answered every question patiently, her earlier loneliness fading away. A boarding announcement interrupted the conversation. Flight to New was ready. "I have to go now," she told the children. "It was wonderful meeting all of you." "Will you come back to visit?" Kip asked. "Maybe someday," said. She stood up and gathered her new bag with her few belongings. As she walked toward the boarding gate, something unexpected happened. One by one, the adult aliens in the waiting area stood up. They didn't applaud or cheer. They simply stood watching her pass. It was a gesture of respect, of acknowledgement, of understanding. Was waiting near the gate. He had come to see her off. "Ready to start your new life?" he asked. "I think so," said. "I'm nervous about the job. Teaching alien children is different from teaching human ones." "You'll be great," assured her. "You just showed those kids that can be kind and patient. That's the best lesson you could teach." He handed her a small card. "This has my contact information. If you ever need anything, call me. And what happened here is going to spread. Your name is going to be known. Some will fear you, some will admire you, but most will just see you as you are, someone who wanted to be left alone." "I can live with that," said. She boarded the ship and found her seat. Through the window, she could see the massive station rotating slowly in space. Somewhere in there, his body was being prepared for transport back to his home world. His family would mourn him. They would blame her. They would never understand that he had brought it on himself. But that wasn't her burden to carry. She had given him every chance. She had done everything right. The guilt she felt was natural, but it wasn't deserved. The ship pulled away from the station, accelerating toward the jump gate that would take them to New. Closed her eyes and thought about her new classroom, about the young minds she would teach, about stories and songs and art projects, about helping children learn and grow in a safe, happy environment. That was who she was, not a killer, not a warrior, a teacher who loved children and believed in kindness. The fact that she could also snap a neck in 2.3 seconds was just an unfortunate reality of being from Earth. 3 months later, across the galaxy, a young scholar named published her research paper. It was titled Restraint as Evolution, Understanding Psychology. The paper analyzed the incident at Station Omega 7 and compared it to hundreds of human interactions throughout history. Her conclusion became famous. Humans are not dangerous because they are strong. They are dangerous because they know how strong they are and they choose restraint anyway. The true measure of their civilization is not their capacity for violence, but their commitment to peace despite that capacity. We should not fear humans. We should learn from them, because any species can be violent. Only the truly evolved can choose not to be. The paper won awards. It was taught in schools. It changed how many species viewed humans and other. But never read it. She was too busy with her kindergarten class on new teaching young aliens about colors and shapes, about sharing and kindness, about being gentle with each other. Her students loved her. Their parents trusted her. She had found her place in the galaxy. And if sometimes, late at night, she thought about those 2.3 seconds in the station waiting area, she reminded herself of what her grandfather had taught her. The world will sometimes force you to do terrible things. What matters is what you do the rest of the time. The rest of the time chose kindness, and that made all the difference.